Welcome back to the Sweet Take. We are going to put forward our predictions for the 8 empty open seats left for the 2026 calendar. This is an episode you don't want to miss out. Michael, how are you? And we've got a lot to talk about today.
Very good, thanks. Yeah, still enjoying the summer break. But this is the time where traditionally we start seeing some movement in the driver market. Up to now, there hasn't been any changes, but we've got 8 seats available for next year. And yeah, I think we should go through and see who we think is going to go where.
So before we get into it, let me remind everyone the 8 open seats and which teams we are debating about. So there is 1 seat at Red Bull, 2 seats at Racing Bulls, 2 seats at Mercedes, 1 seat at Alpine, and of course the newcomers, 2 seats at Cadillac. So Michael, why don't we first talk about the drivers that we think are safe and whether they're going to re-sign with their existing teams? And I'm referring to both George and Isaac.
Yes, I think George will sign for Mercedes. I think now that the whole Max Verstappen drama at Mercedes is at least done for one more year. And I suspect Mercedes will want to try and do it quite quickly. And we should hear an announcement probably before the end of the 2 European races, would be my guess on that. What do you think about Isaac? What do you think is going to happen with him?
So I feel like there's been a lot of drivers that have over delivered in that Racing Bull seat. But then when they move on to the upgraded sister team, Red Bull, they don't perform well. And I'm referring to specifically Liam and Yuki. So I am really struggling with this one because if Isaac stays at Racing Bulls, it's almost, it seems like a guaranteed good 2026 and more of a gamble if it moves up to Red Bull. But at the same time, I don't think any driver can say no to a top team. So I feel like it is going to be likely that he's going to be pressured. And I'm sure he also wants to see what he can do in a faster car next year. So I think he's going to move. But what does that mean for Yuki?
Exactly. Yeah. Yuki's on a very, very dismal run of races. He's hasn't scored. I think he's got the record for the longest consecutive number of races without scoring a point for a Red Bull driver. So things aren't going well for Yuki. And the chances that he will be in that seat next year are very, very slim, unless he has a phenomenal second half of the year. But the thing with Isaac is that Liam is only 2 points behind him in the championship. So in the last few races, Liam has been scoring points. I think he scored 3 times in the last 4 races. And Isaac hasn't really had the luck recently. So they're quite close together. And do Red Bull think that they've got a strong enough package with their new Ford Red Bull own engine that they could be championship contenders and then make a big move for somebody who's maybe a more experienced driver, who's a little bit unsettled? They could look at a Carlos Sainz or someone like that to kind of bring them into the team. Sergio Perez, maybe bring him out of retirement. Is that too crazy? Valtteri Bottas. So there's a lot of options that they could be mulling over there.
Definitely a lot of options. And it kind of leads us to the next group of drivers, which is the have existing contracts but are unhappy. So a place where I think Yuki could potentially go is Aston Martin. It's getting a lot of pressure about Lance Stroll underperforming race after race for several seasons in a row now against Alonso. And didn't Honda switch to Aston Martin as their engine provider for 2026? Obviously, Yuki has a long-standing relationship with Honda. Could we see a move where Yuki goes to Aston Martin? Carlos Sainz, unhappy at Williams, former Red Bull Racing Academy driver. Does he go back to Red Bull? So these are all conspiracy theories. However, I feel like they're also logical.
So yeah, so the Lance Stroll one is an interesting one because he often doesn't look very happy, but yet year after year he comes back and he does, I think, effectively have a contract for life or however long he wants to race. Yuki could be a reserve driver there. I don't know how tight his Honda connection is. And I don't know if Honda are sponsoring him because he's a Japanese driver in Formula One rather than he is a Honda driver. So I don't necessarily know if they will pull him from Red Bull next year, but they might actually fund him if he goes somewhere else. Or they could give him a reserve role at Aston. But yeah, Lance I think will still be in Aston next year. I think he'll be there as long as he wants. Carlos Sainz, though, now he looks pretty miserable. He's been completely outshone by Alex Albon. He doesn't look like he's enjoying the Williams. Yeah, he's been really struggling. And I wonder if a bigger team came looking for him, that he would jump ship. I definitely think he'll be in Formula One, but I think, if a Red Bull or a Mercedes or maybe even a punted Cadillac, yeah, he could be moved, I guess.
On the topic of existing but unhappy, we have to talk about Lewis. Lewis is probably the most vocal about being unhappy, more with himself, it seems, than with the team. I think it is unlikely he's going to actually move teams. It sounds like he has a pretty long term, longish agreement with Ferrari that spans beyond just the racing, but obviously also a lot of the commercial aspect of the team, merch sales and collaborating with Ferrari goes beyond the racing. But he is unhappy. It would be an insane plot twist if he went back to Mercedes because, Kimi might be, we don't know about his contract, but I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think Lewis will probably stick it out at Ferrari. I think you can only really judge the success of this move at the end of next year. This year is all about finding his feet, getting to work with the team, settling in. Next year's the big year for them. The rules change, they'll be focusing on that new car. So yeah, don't look too hard at Lewis just yet and judge him just yet.
I really hope that he comes back from the summer break rejuvenated and is able to move into next year with Ferrari. But I 100% agree with you on the 2026 season for him. And he'll be able to have provided input into the design of that car as he understands the existing car and what, next year looks like. So fingers crossed for Lewis. We have to now talk about the drivers that want back in. So there's Valtteri Bottas, there's Jack Doohan, there's obviously Checo, and we can't forget Zhao. What do you think about these four, and who has the highest chance of landing a seat in 2026?
Well, I think Checo's in this amazing position where his value is rising for every race he doesn't drive. As everyone can see, how that second seat is so difficult at Red Bull. His performances actually were pretty good. He was runner-up one year. He won races for the team. He was a very, very solid contributor, and he worked well within the team. So I think as an option for Cadillac, he must be number one on their list. I've spoken to some people who were connected to him last year, and they gave very, very sheepish, no comments about potential moves. So I've heard rumors that there might be an announcement around about Monza. Yeah, but I have heard rumors during the year that there was going to be an announcement sooner, and that hasn't happened yet. So, let's see where that goes. But I think Checo's probably in the best position to get a new seat.
That is so funny, Michael. I never thought about it that way, I don't remember any other driver that by not driving, his stock goes up as a driver. So that is great insight. And you're 100% right. Like he came in on the podium almost every race, like, every other race, almost more than half the races when he was with Max. But because he wasn't coming in second, people were being really critical about his performance. And he has a lot of financial backing that he can also bring to Cadillac, American team, Mexico, part of North America. So I can definitely see that happening. Do you see a world where Cadillac actually picks two experienced drivers in Valtteri and Checo to be on the same team? Or is it too much of two old guys on a new F1 team?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, look, they're both characters, but I wouldn't really describe them as high energy drivers. Like they don't, you can imagine being the difference of being in a garage with Daniel Ricciardo and Valtteri. I mean, Valtteri's funny, he's got a great sense of humor, but he's soft and he's subtle and he's gentle. And Checo's pretty gentle. And I feel you need a firecracker in that team to kind of get everyone going. But in your first year as a team, I think you do want experience. So I would probably go for Bottas and Checo if they're both available.
I think it is smart because the team needs a lot of really good feedback to develop the team into next year. But I agree, yeah, Bottas's humor is dry and deadpan, so deadpan. And yes, that's good when you want to take the emotion out of it and just really focus on, improving the car. But yeah, it would be great if they could inject more energy, and that more energy could come in the form of a rookie.
There was two other drivers wanting back in that we didn't cover. Jack Doohan, again, I've heard rumors that he might be in the car in Zandvoort. Alpine seemed to be a bit up in the air about that second seat. And Zhao was rumored for the Cadillac seat at one stage and could potentially end up there if they don't have a Bottas or Checo isn't available. He is another experienced driver. Again, probably not bringing the right energy that you'd need to sort of counter a Checo or a Bottas. But rookies, let's see, who do we have? So current F2 championship leader is Leonardo Fornaroli. He's an Italian driver. He's a really interesting driver because he's won F3 last year. He had 2 seasons in F3 and he never won a single race, but he still managed to win the championship. And that's unusual. This year, he's leading the championship. He's won a few races. He's won 3 races, and he's looking very, very good. So he's not aligned to any team. So he could be quite an interesting wildcard pick for a team that hasn't sorted out a good driver yet. He looks like quite a good option. Consistent driver, pretty fast. So we've got him. There's Jack Crawford, who's second in the championship. He's an American driver, linked with Aston Martin, and he could be someone that a Cadillac would be interested in because he does hit that homegrown driver talent. And he's been around the F2 and F3 series a bit, so he does bring some experience from that side, but no Formula One action yet. Alex Dunn, who's a Irish driver, he's in F2 at the moment. He started the season very, very well. He's linked to McLaren. They probably won't give him to another team like they gave Gabriel Bortoleto to another team. But there is a good chance that he could be a McLaren reserve driver. Yeah, who else do you think is knocking around?
Well, there's also the reserve drivers, right? And I feel like I've seen Felipe Drugovich around more this season, especially in your photos. I don't know if he has a spot going into next year. There's also Paul Aaron, Alpine Jr., the Alpine seat with Franco seems pretty rocky. So I don't know if he is a potential option. But I feel like it's going to be a tough year for rookies going into 26, unlike 2025 when we saw so many of them enter, especially when it seems like many of the ones this year are going to remain for the most part. Like, I think Kimi's probably going to still stay in some capacity. We have Bortoleto. I feel like there's still many that could build on their progress this year going into next year. So I can't see a world where we'll have another 4 or 5 rookies enter a season.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think if a team like Red Bull Racing Bulls has a bit of a luxury where they can take in a junior, they're in a slightly different position to everyone else. But to have brand new cars with new engines, new aero, you really want that consistent, reliable feedback with somebody who's experienced who can really help the development of the car. Not saying that rookies can't do that, but next year is going to be a huge development race, and teams are going to want to get as much feedback as possible.
I'm very much looking forward to Bahrain testing and how that's going to shape out. I think it's going to be very, very exciting.
So that does raise a very interesting question. So if we look at somewhere like Mercedes, the rumors are that Mercedes engine is going to be pretty good. It's probably going to be between them and Ferrari. And the engine is going to be the most important aspect of the car next year. So the team that nails engines, the teams that have the manufacturer that's nailed engines, are going to be in a very good position. Now, if it's Mercedes, and if they've produced a cracker like they did at the last big upgrade, their customer team, McLaren, have 2 phenomenal drivers. Williams have 2 very, very good drivers. Will Mercedes feel confident fighting those 2 teams with the same power units with George and Kimi? And it looks like George is going to sign, but Kimi, there's question marks over him. He's been quick, but he hasn't been consistent, and he drops off. He's not in the top 10 very much. When they were debating whether it'll be Max or George, it looked like Kimi was safe. As the season develops and he doesn't show consistency, will Mercedes start to have doubts and maybe think about their reserve driver, Valtteri Bottas, for that second seat?
Only time will tell. But I hear you. Kimi has these bursts of brilliance and then he crashes or he's out in Q3 in quali. And so it's very up and down. I'm sure it's an experience thing. He can definitely do it. He needs more time in the seat, but the pressure is high when you're in a top team. So I don't know. He's one of my favorites. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, he is. He is very, very good. You could see a situation where he might get farmed out to Alpine as part of the engine package, and they bring Bottas back for a year to give them consistency and a shot at the championship and take that pressure off him, so he can continue to learn because he's still very, very young, and maybe he needs an extra year of learning. But if you're in the scenario where your teammate is on pole position and fighting for wins and you're 6th or 7th, that could do more damage to his career than a year at Alpine learning his craft a bit more.
That's true. It's kind of what happened with Alex? Left Red Bull, now has an incredible career at Williams, and his stock is only going up. And I'm sure at some point he will probably consider moving on to somewhere else unless Williams is able to fight for championships. So, Michael, let's do some predictions for these 8 open seats and start first with Red Bull. Who do you think is going to be Max's teammate next year?
I was pretty sure it was going to be Isaac Hadjar at the start of the video, but the more we've talked, they might take a punt with someone and go with Carlos Sainz. But I think I'm going to stick with Isaac Hadjar. That's my guess for that seat.
Ooh. Just to be different, and because Red Bull has a track record of being a short-term memory the size of a peanut, I'm going to go with Carlos because ex-Red Bull Racing driver, unhappy at Williams, new car, can give feedback well. The last 2 tries with rookies didn't go so well, so Carlos.
Okay.
All right. Next up, Mercedes.
Yeah. So I think George is a bolt-on for the first seat, and I'm going to say they're going to go with. I'm going to say Kimi's going to come good and gets the second seat.
I'm also going to agree. I think George and Kimi, I remember us actually talking about how Toto really fought to get Kimi onto the team, had to convince the board, why he deserved the seat and was so quick, and it might seem a little short on time. But it may only be a 1-year contract, and if he still doesn't keep performing in 26, then they might do a switch next year. But to start the season, George and Kimi.
Okay, then let's look at Alpine. So Alpine, right now, that second seat is probably the worst seat on the grid. But next year, they're going to have Mercedes engines. And I think that the chassis side actually is producing a pretty good chassis. They quite often are a lot higher up than you'd expect on circuits where power is not important. So I think it's actually going to be quite a sought-after seat. And I'm going to say Bottas.
Wow. Bottas at Alpine. I honestly have no idea. Like, this one is like the one that stumps me the most. So I think Franco is going to be out, but who to take that seat? You know what? I'm going to do a wild card and say Yuki.
Very interesting.
Yuki remains on the grid, finds another home.
Okay. So I think Alpine will probably be one of the last teams to confirm their lineup. So I think they'll have a good choice of whoever's left. And as we've gone through these names, there's a lot of very, very talented drivers still available. So yeah, okay. Then do you want to do Racing Bulls next?
Sure. I think that Racing Bulls will actually stick with their 2 drivers. I think Isaac's in a great spot. He deserves a seat for next year. Liam has incrementally gotten better over the last couple of weekends, so he's showing good momentum. So I'm going to stick with Isaac and Liam.
Nice. I'm going to join you on Liam, and I'm going to say Arvid Lindblad is going to come up from F2 and be a rookie in that second seat, which means my calculations that Yuki is out at the moment.
Right, because your prediction at the top of this was that Isaac goes to Red Bull.
Yes.
All right. Last but not least, Cadillac.
Yeah. Perez, I think, for the first seat. And because I've gone and stuck Bottas over at Alpine, I'm going to go for Yuki in the second seat there.
Okay.
That's the prediction I'm feeling least confident about.
Well, I think I'm feeling confident about one half of it, which is Checo. A lot of reports linking him to Cadillac. I think the other seat is Bottas. 2 experienced drivers giving that feedback.
But you've got an open seat now at Williams.
That's true. I think Williams maybe would consider Zhao or Jack Doohan. I don't know if I would see them picking a rookie versus someone who has kind of proved themselves, so much why they picked Carlos. So
what about
I'm going to go with Zhao.
Because he used to race for them. And
that's true.
He was very successful.
But he's not been that successful with Alpine.
Could that be a team issue? Maybe the style of management over at Williams is more conducive to the way he likes to drive.
Yeah, when he was at Williams for those handful of races, he did score points and he did do well. It's only since he's been over at Alpine where he's been having a bunch of issues.
Yeah, he genuinely looked like on the same level as Alex quite a lot of that year. So, yeah. Interesting stuff. Well, we'll have to have a look at the end of the year and see who was right, or how many of those were right and how many of those were wrong.
Based on my track record, probably not many. However, Maybe we'll see. There's more spots that we're talking about. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. Please comment below with your predictions and feel free to debate with us whether you think ours are totally off the rails or spot on. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.